When we were tasked with choosing a company and following one of its products from cradle to grave, I chose Burberry, one of the world's most iconic fashion brands, and chose to follow their iconic trench coats. The research question I came up with to help me delve deeper into my research was: are the materials used and produced by Burberry to create their iconic trench coats socially responsible and environmentally friendly throughout production? My justification for this question goes as such. Burberry is one of the world's top fashion brands. As such, it is their responsibility to help lead their industry and fellow brands into a more green, socially responsible future. Earlier in the unit, I looked into Burberry a bit, and they seem to heavily promote ecologically friendly and responsible production. I wanted to see if their supply chain, for perhaps their most iconic product, the trench coat that sparked the growth of their brand, reflected the ideals they promoted. This would allow me to see if Burberry is a brand we can trust to lead the garments industry into a greener future. Here's what I discovered. Firstly, I would like to mention Burberry has in place a statement that ensures that the humane treatment of workers affected by their supply chains, as well as the sustainability of said supply chain. Uh, Firstly, I would like to mention that Burberry has in place a statement that ensures the humane treatment of workers affected by their supply chains, as well as the sustainability of said supply chains. This is a statement I would hope Burberry abides by, as the violation of such a statement would lead to massive scandals upon discovery, something I believe most large corporations would like to avoid. For these trench coats, Burberry uses the fabric gabardine, which is made of tightly woven cotton. The cotton is supplied by heavily vetted farms in Peru. Burberry has programs in place to ensure that their farms follow sustainable crop growing programs. In fact, they created the training program for them. Most of Burberry's source farms are small farms that depend on the cotton industry to survive. Burberry works with sustainable cotton growing groups to guarantee a minimal use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, while still putting out a large output of cotton. Specifically, the farmers use 26% less chemical fertilizers and 68% less pesticides, while increasing their crop yields by 15%. The farmers report less irrigation and resources, as the farms started to use less water due to the programs enacted by Burberry in partnership with Cotton Connect. As their yields increased, the financial state of the farmers improved, all due to the real program. Burberry also uses shell buttons for these trench coats. Burberry is not very good with sourcing where their buttons come from, but based on information found, it was easier to pinpoint possible sources for Burberry's button supplier. The vast majority of today's shell buttons are manufactured in Asia, moving the direction of the search. After chancing upon a list of shell button producers and manufacturers who simply sell shell buttons to buyers, it became very simple to analyze that data that came with each company and run it against the policies and needs Burberry has in place. It was narrowed down to about 3 or 4 possible suppliers. One possible supplier would be BTL Worldwide Incorporated. They are one of the biggest suppliers of shell buttons in the world, with factories throughout Asia. They clearly have the capability to carry out all of Burberry's needs as a brand. However, these large suppliers are prone to gaps in their action on human rights, going against Burberry policy, leading me to believe that they do not use this company. Another possible supplier is Jindal Products Limited, another one of the world's biggest shell button suppliers. They export to a majority of the world's major apparel brands. But again, such large companies are prone to violations of ethical production, violating Burberry's regulations on human rights, thus eliminating them as a source. Another source could be the Korean company Hyunwoo Tratek. This company has a very good quality control and can match their buyers' requests. They are exporting heavily to Europe, but Burberry will require assurance of proper codes of conduct, which this company doesn't provide. So I don't believe Burberry would use them. The final producer is Honlung Button Manufacturing Limited, a company who is capable of meeting the needs of their buyers, with the ability to accommodate to buyer requests. Unlike all the other main companies, however, Honlung is capable of ensuring safety requirements when producing their buttons, meaning Burberry's codes would be satisfied, leading me to believe Honlung is the most probable button supplier for Burberry. The cotton is sent from Peru to the Burberry textile mill in Cayley, England. At the mill, the cotton is sorted and then undergoes several procedures. Based on the information I found, the cotton is put through machines to be made into the gabardine fabric used for the trench coats. There aren't very many workers at the textile mill. It is not really necessary for them to be there. It is all done by machines, and their only purpose is to check up on the procedures. It then goes on to be dyed in the same building. For the trench coat specifically, there are 4 dyes used: red, black, ivory, and camel dyes. Burberry assures that they minimize the use of chemicals that harm the environment, so their dyes are most likely eco-friendly. All of Burberry's trench coats are manufactured in the Castleford factory in Yorkshire, England, and another factory also located in Yorkshire. The workers are mainly British women, and very few reporters have been allowed inside the factory. From what has been seen by the reporters allowed inside the factory, as cameras are not allowed inside the factory, the workers work on sewing machines, and there are about 800 workers in each of the Yorkshire factories. Burberry ensures that all its workers are given basic human rights and proper pay. This is in accordance with British law, which Burberry, a UK-based company, is subject to, as well as its factories that make this trench coat, as they are all in England. This map is a visual representation of what the Burberry supply chain looks like. Number 1 represents suppliers, number 2 represent manufacturers, number 3 represent production areas, and number 4 represents distribution. As you can see, the Burberry supply chain starts in Peru. This is where Burberry's cotton is grown and sent to Burberry's factories. This would be Burberry's first and most important supply. A second supplier for Burberry is located in Hong Kong, China. This is where Burberry's shell buttons used on the trench coats are made and produced by the Hanlong Company, which works in partnership with Burberry, according to my best guesses. The rest of the supply chain takes place in Great Britain. Firstly, the raw cotton is sent to the Burberry textile mill in Cayley, England. This would be the number 2 on the map. Here, the cotton is refined, dyed, and turned and woven into the gabardine fabric, which makes up 100% of the trench coat. Then we move on to number 3, which is the Castleford factory, where the trench coats are made using the gabardine fabric and the shell buttons from China. The Castleford factory houses about 800 workers for Burberry. Then the finished trench coats are sent south to London in the Burberry HQ, where the finished trench coats are shipped to Burberry's multiple retailers around the world to be purchased by consumers. Now we'll begin to talk about the social effects of the supply chain of the Burberry trench coat. Through the production of this trench coat, Burberry creates jobs in 3 main countries: England, China, and Peru. While the manufacturing and creation of other products surely creates a network of jobs for those who need it around the world, in countries Burberry uses to help create for and promote their iconic brand. An example would be through the work of Christopher Bailey, Burberry's chief creative officer. He tried to initiate a project worth about £50 million, creating a new Burberry production factory in Leeds, in the UK. This factory alone would have created 200 more jobs for people in the area, emphasizing the values and image of the Burberry brand. Although this project fell through, the concern put forward by the Burberry brand is impressive. In the 2 factories in Yorkshire, around 800 people find jobs producing clothing for Burberry. These people work on sewing machines, but produce around 5,000 of Burberry's iconic trench coats a week. As these factories are located in England, the company is subjected to following United Kingdom labour law. enforcing the basic human rights of all workers within the country. So as Burberry is subject to this law, we can assume that the company should be maintaining the basic rights of its workers, as all of the workers have the ability to complain, and as of yet, none have done so. The workers earn about £8.25 an hour and have the option for bonuses and leaves, if the reason is valid. The textile mill in Cayley employs about 75 workers over the course of 3 shifts, each 8 hours, as can be deduced from simple math, as the factory runs for 24 hours a day. One should assume that these workers are subject to the same laws that apply to the factory workers. As for the farmers in Peru, the REAL program initiated by Burberry and Cotton Connect has helped increase their cotton yields by an estimated number of 15%, which would obviously improve their financial situation, meaning that Burberry has helped improve the lives of not only their employees, but their suppliers. As for the environmental effects, Burberry has put forward many initiatives to improve the eco-friendliness of their brand. The trench coat falls under this category. First and foremost, we shall start with the cotton suppliers in Peru. As aforementioned, Burberry has partnered with the sustainable cotton group, Cotton Connect. Through this partnership, they have created a 3-year training program that helps Peruvian cotton farmers adopt more sustainable cotton growing practices, while increasing the amount of cotton they output. This program has proved extremely successful, as cotton farmers have reported using 26% less chemical fertilizers and 68% less pesticides. This in itself is a major step towards green production in the fashion industry, as Burberry, a leading brand, is helping to lead the way through making their own production greener. Burberry has many concerns about making their production line friendlier to the environment, despite their already significant advancements. Burberry is concerned about its current factories not being green enough and wishes to move to a more eco-friendly building, one with both better conditions for its workers and a better effect on the environment. This would have been the factory in Leeds, but as that project was never completed, Burberry is looking for a new opportunity to shift into a greener company. Burberry has set the goal of eradicating hazardous chemicals from its supply chain by 2020. A fantastic landmark if it is achieved. This goes way above what any company is required to do for the environment, thus proving that Burberry is doing well for the environment. Through all my research on Burberry's supply chain for their iconic trench coats, I can finally give an answer to my research question. Burberry is a company devoted to lessening their eco-footprint, as can be seen through their initiatives being taken in regards to hazardous chemicals in their own factories and among their suppliers. Burberry has set the fantastic goal of eliminating all hazardous chemicals from its supply chain by 2020, an achievement that could help inspire other large corporations to follow in their footsteps. Burberry has also provided proper working conditions to their employees working for them in their English factories, as can be seen through the evidence from the Guardian's article. As for the people who helped to create these trench coats away from their home base of Britain, Burberry has helped to financially and economically benefit the lives of their cotton farmers, as they have helped them to put out bigger yields and thus increase the amount of money they earn. We know that the most probable suppliers of their shell buttons, in accordance to Burberry policy, have safety checks, ensuring the eco-friendliness and social responsibility of their button suppliers. Burberry's concern for the people affected by their products, as well as the effects their products have on the environment, is commendable to say the least. In conclusion, after going through all of this research, I do believe Burberry is a company that can help lead its industry to a greener, more responsible tomorrow.